Good evening, afternoon, morning to everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Worldwide Football. As always, I am your host, Connor Pajuelo, here with my co-host, Matthew Rothman. And before anyone asks the question, why do I have a shiesty on my face? Well, because there are certain players in certain clubs that are absolutely doing nothing to justify their signing, their expenses, their money the wages that
Salaries.
they're being paid. And so essentially, I'm dressing up like them to basically say the message that they are stealing a living. So I am dressing up as Kylian Mbappe because his signing bonus is so much and he's been nothing but asked for Madrid. Now, meanwhile, I got Big Head behind me, Vincent Company, because it's funny. But today's focus is going to be on the struggles behind Real Madrid this season, with their main culprit as of right now being the guy that they basically bent over for 7 years, hoping that he would come to the club. I will let Matthew give his take real quick. Matthew, what is it that happened with Real Madrid? Because let's be real with ourselves. In the years that we've done videos like this, we've never really done one where it's like, oh, a Real Madrid struggle video, something to that regard. We never really done that.
Yeah, because it's always with Real Madrid, you just know, even in their struggling years, at some point they're going to pull it off, whether it's in the Champions League, whether it's, find a way to get some sort of trophy, whether it's like through the league. Because even if, like, basically last week, you know, they were behind, like, what, 9 points or so a couple weeks ago, then they cut it down to three. So,
Yeah, but
but
that's
now it's
also
back up
because
to quite a bit.
my club for the
Yeah.
whole month of November was functioned on zero brain cells for some reason. So
Yeah, but the main thing with Real Madrid is that you always think that there's a way to for them to go forward, and we've seen that a lot in the past few years. But at the moment now, it just looks like they're stagnant, and a lot of that you can point towards, manager Carlo Ancelotti, but a lot of it you also have to point towards the move that they made for Mbappe. Florentino Perez really pushing to get Mbappe, even though there were a lot of warning signs there, and so far it hasn't really come to pass for them.
now let's put it to perspective. First, let's not slate on Mbappe too much right now. Um, let's put it like this. As of right now, they have a huge number of issues, as in their defense is absolutely injury riddled, and a lot of them just aren't good. With the exception of Carvajal, who unfortunately is now out with an ACL and possibly could be a career ender injury because he's already up there in age. A big question is their fullbacks because their fullbacks are really not that good. Vasquez was pretty much a winger until he shifted to a fullback, and even then, his defensive qualities are shite, which is why Bellingham and Valverde have to do so much covering for him defensively. Both fullbacks, Fran Garcia and Ferland Mendy, are so dead, which now I could really understand why Real Madrid would want to go for Alfonso Davies. Even though if you really wanted a more attacking wise fullback, I don't see why you would go for Davis, but he definitely does bring a lot more contribution and carrying him the
Although
ball than Ferland Mendy
with the
does.
recent news with Davies and his contract extension, how Bayern have made significant progress, well, that will be put on hold at the moment for Madrid. But yeah, as you mentioned, though, I mean, Mendy, I thought last season was all right, but the thing is, we've always seen this sort of turnstile of Mendy where it's like good performance followed by some really poor performances, and this season's been more poor than good. So it's at that point where the fullbacks in particular with Carvajal out, there's like no, you're not getting much from them, and ultimately it seems like they're playing with nine players. It seems like every time because you don't expect them to really
Also, for a
function well.
fullback, his awareness is god awful, even in the
Yeah.
defensive aspect. So, yeah, something has to be said there. Their center backs, Militao, spent a significant amount of time on the injury list. They recently promoted Raul Asensio from the Fabrica Academy to the first team. I'm not going to get into the whole pedophile rumors that this man is being going through. but he seems to be a very decent defender as of right now. He's looked very promising. But yeah, the defense definitely do need some upgrades with, with the exception of Milicia, Rudiger. Alaba's practically on the injury list, but they still say, hey, he's good enough to return for next season. Yeah, we'll see
Yeah,
about
she's
that, mate.
still not there.
Midfield, the loss of Tony Cruz is still prevalent since Luka Modric can replicate that role because Luka
And
Modric, well,
Chouamani's been a
is
disaster
and
too.
Chouameni is a disaster because he brings, apart from like defensive qualities, he brings nothing on the ball, which is kind of sad. They said he has the touch of a balloon, which is absolutely funny, but also kind
That's
of
pretty
accurate.
generous if I'm being honest. His touch might be worse than that.
Him and Ferran
But
Torres are going band for band with who has the worst first touch in La Liga.
yeah, but yeah, the loss of Tony Kroos, and that was something we all saw last season. How fantastic he was, throughout the Champions League knockout rounds, and Kroos basically, he and Vinny were the two main guys in that team, and a big reason why they won the Champions League that season. And I think what really hurts that they basically put all their eggs in the Mbappe basket and didn't really have any room to look for a player that could, like, of course you're not going to replace Kroos man for man, but at least you could get some sort of quality in there that may be similar to Tony Kroos with his passing, with his deep line playmaking. But instead, no, they put all
Yeah,
their
because
eggs in
unfortunately, when
Mbappe.
you have two runner midfielders in the lines of Valverde and Jude Bellingham, who, let's be real, Bellingham does a lot better more on the offensive side than he does defensively, even though it's not too terrible, but he does better on the offensive side. You have Chouameni, who is really just I don't want to say Oreo Romeo, like just like, hard defending. Yeah, most of the time, when you saw Chouameni last season, a big portion of his best performances did come at center back. Um, but yeah, no, in the midfield, definitely a lot of improvements need to be made because there were reports earlier this season about Enzo Fernandez potentially being linked to a move to Real
Yeah,
Madrid. Which I mean is not like a huge significant improvement. Like he has done better this season for Chelsea, but it's like, can he replicate that six role? Because he does play next to Caicedo. Um, and I guess it depends whether or not he would fit in that midfield. Maybe as a Modric replacement, perhaps. I'm not sure. Because Modric is very good with, carrying the ball up into the final third with his passing and his dribbling. Perhaps he could replicate that role. I don't know. But let's get into the attack part where they're really faltering at the moment. Real Madrid this season, if my stats are correct, currently have a goal differential of 18. To put that in perspective, that's the same amount as Atletico Madrid, who we all say are absolute terrorism FC. But with Atletico's incredible run of form so far, they've done well. Defensively, Real Madrid hasn't done. They're still somewhat scoring goals, but a big portion of that is coming from Vinny Jr., who, let's be real, is Madrid's best forwards. No one can tell us otherwise. They tried putting Bellingham deeper in the left. It hasn't worked. They tried putting Bellingham back to the false nine position. It still hasn't
that
clicking.
still hasn't worked.
Rodrigo has been damn near axed this whole season, and I wouldn't be surprised if bro somehow were to leave because now with the inclusion of Mbappe, he's seeing less and less game time. Arda Güler gets hardly any minutes.
Yeah,
Endrick
I
damn
don't
near gets
understand that at all.
isolated.
Personally, I don't understand that at all. That Arda Güler barely gets game time, and yet somehow you had rumors about Real Madrid wanting to get Verts. It's like you basically already have your youngster wonder kid there. You just don't play him, and we've seen the
Exactly.
talent that Güler has.
And
Just
then
don't
we
play
see
him.
like they're still winning like a good decent of their games, but they're also dropping points where they needed to. They get lucky with penalties. Like the game against Sociedad, they won that game purely based off pens. They had two pens, scored both goals. Their attack lacks chemistry. Mbappe, Vinny, and Rodrigo clearly cannot function together since they all thrive off the left. Mbappe struggles so much as a striker. Ancelotti, I remember him saying like you could put Vinny through the middle and Mbappe on the left. I'm like, you're just limiting Vinny's abilities on the wing. Like are you trying to turn this man into Neymar and make him almost like a hybrid 10, almost a winger?
The difference is Neymar had the ability to really push through the middle, whereas it's a lot more difficult if you're Vinny unless you drop him back in and then like have him go out. But in that case, you need a deep line playmaker, and Real Madrid don't have that. So it's like, even if, let's say, you were to put Vinny in the middle and you think it would work, it won't work because your midfield, you don't have that guy who could really spring that ball over the top
And at the
because
moment,
Kroos is no
it's
longer
getting more
there.
and more difficult because Vinny's still out for another like week and a half, I believe. It was 3 weeks injury, so he missed the last couple games already, which the game against Getafe, which it's Getafe and they're bully FC. The awful loss against Liverpool, where Liverpool just basically smacked them in the face with their dick. And then the game yesterday against Bilbao, where I mean Bilbao weren't even all that, to be honest. And a big portion and the goals, a lot of it came from individual mistakes, especially that last one where Valverde completely sold.
Yeah, that's
Um, but yeah, no, like the cohesion isn't there. So a lot of people are saying this is Ancelotti's last season, which I believe it is. So they'll probably shoot for Alonso next season. But now let's get into the biggest culprit as of right now. The Ninja Turtle himself, Kylian Mbappe. Can someone please explain to me what happened? I hear jokes around the lines of this man sold his soul for one of the greatest World Cup final performances of all time just to lose. He only performs against Messi. I mean, this brother, he's struggling so much at Madrid with this new position. He has, but he has the backing of damn near the entire Madrid fan base and the board. Well, not so much the fan base now because they're all slating him for being ass. He gets paid more than everybody. The French team, he hardly ever plays for the French team. That whole thing
yeah,
about
because he's
I'm
just
only going
like
to
the
play
games
the
aren't important.
important
That's why.
games. Well, that's just a smack in the face and disrespect to your country, isn't it?
Absolutely. But I mean, going back to what you said about the fans and board, I mean, the board, they're basically forced to back Mbappe because if they don't, then that means there's going to be that massive distrust
Are they
between the
scared of
fans
the
and the board.
guy? I'm honestly like, I feel like somehow, some way, Madrid are still dropping their pants for this guy, despite his bad performances. They're willing to at least still try to work with him. Let's be real. Eden Hazard was already getting super slated like in the first couple of months of his Madrid career. And a lot of it came down to his fitness and injuries. But keep in mind, it's not just the performance he's putting up, it's his attitude. Again, with the whole he doesn't work for the team, he has an attitude. The again with the lack of cohesion. There is a footage that came out about the whole him and his teammates kind of ignoring him. Yeah, it's not the start to life in Spain that Mbappe was dreaming of. So this is and then it goes back to his time at PSG. Do you think the whole, with PSG basically bending over for Mbappe, do you think this has just fed his ego to the point where he thinks everyone should just get on their knees for him?
I think, especially considering the second contract he got from PSG was like 2 year plus the player option worth like what 150 million a year. I mean, that's ridiculous money or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a big part because when PSG really gave that to him, it basically meant, hey, we really want you here, but not only that, we're going to have you basically be in control of everything. That's why they switched managers like twice during, that contract alone. That's why he brought in a bunch of his friends
That's
like
why he got rid
Dembele,
of a lot
you
of
know.
people,
Yeah,
Neymar
it's like got rid
mainly.
of a lot of them too. Neymar, Messi, they went out the door after that. So yeah, it was like not only did they give him that contract, but also there was a massive sense of control of that. Basically, it's like sort of like LeBron James, how a lot of people joke about him in the NBA with Cleveland, especially how during some trades and all, like he's basically a parts like, hey, you need to get this guy, that guy. It seems like in this case with PSG, that's exactly what Mbappe was doing. So
Which is
that
funny
was a big
too,
part.
is like it's also assimilating to a different league. He played in League On where he practically terrorized everyone's defense with the amount of space that he got, being able to do his signature cut in, shoot near post. In La Liga, you don't really get that. It could work for a while, but a lot of times La Liga teams are some can be very compact defensively and play a lot of low blocks. And when you don't have that space, you're just kind of limited. You see Mbappe play now, his creativity is so limited to the point where he's scared to even take on defenders out of fear of losing the ball. So he just cuts back and then just plays the ball forward. Like, where's the creativity? Where's the energy? Where's the terrorizing dribbling that we saw for years over in France. It's just not
Even
working
risk
over in
taking.
Spain.
Where's the risk taking that he has? Just like when he does that, just cuts back and passes back. It's like, dude, this isn't you. Like we've all seen you at your best. You're always like trying to drive in, trying to take on those guys, take those chances, and now you're just like taking the easy road.
Do you
It
think that
doesn't make
Mbappe
sense.
is a type? Is he's the caliber? Here's the thing: he's a caliber player that can do stuff himself, but a big portion of his goals also do come from other guys supplying him the ball.
Yeah,
Let's be real. You had guys like even out of prime Messi was still supplying this man dagger. Same with Neymar. And Madrid, you don't really see a whole lot of that right now, with the exception of Vinny and then sometimes Bellingham, but like you don't really see that as of now. His confidence is absolutely shot to shit. Missed penalties against Liverpool and just yesterday against Bilbao. You could see in his body language, like he looks almost scared to take the pens. It's like you know where a club does like for a shite guy where they give him a pen to try to boost his confidence, like my club has done
yeah.
for Fed Tours over and over again.
I know Havertz
Um,
has done that, especially for Germany on a few occasions too.
he did that for Chelsea and then at some points Arsenal before he became good. But yeah, this guy is just not really is not clicking right now. And some people could say it's a mental thing, it's his play style thing. Honestly, it's all of the above.
Yeah,
It's
it's
all
a
of the above. And the
combination of
problem
all of them.
is that the club themselves are shooting themselves in the foot. This is not the like this is one Mbappe performance where he's had already many. And to be fair, he has 8 goals in the league right now. Granted, a few of them are for penalties, but
I think a majority are pens.
a good decent of
Basically,
them are
seems like it.
pens.
Yeah,
But it's just it's not working. It's not working right now. And they're not gonna bench him. Let's be real. They're not gonna bench him. Otherwise, it just makes the board and everyone else look stupid as hell.
yeah. I mean, they're
And they're
basically
gonna
forced
run
to
the
start him.
agenda. Yeah, they're gonna run the agenda of why the hell was he brought into the team, and then they're gonna slate Perez for, oh, you brought this guy only in for PR and marketing. You torqued for him for years just for him to have the better left winger at home when you could have gone for an actual number 9 like Harry Kane. I see a lot of Madrid fans on Twitter actually complain about that. They're like, Harry Kane was right there for the taking. I don't know why the hell they didn't try to shoot for Harry Kane, and now he's at Bayern and being the only good forward that they have right now.
Well, and Musiala, but that's another story for another time. But I mean, I will say, yeah, like they're, as you said, the board basically they're since they basically bent over backwards, pulled their pants down for Mbappe. Ancelotti's forced to start him, and there's really no questions about that. There's nothing else he could really do. It's almost like you expect Real Madrid. It's always been a club based on business, trying to make sure that they get into the players that are perfectly fit for the club. They've done that basically throughout the early 2010s, especially like even late 2000s. Now, especially with Mbappe, it just seems they've gone back on that moral where like they brought in a guy who they really wanted for 7 years, and yet now he just doesn't fit them whatsoever. I mean, this is totally not what you would have expected from Real Madrid. And sure, a lot of people were very, I guess, a lot of Real Madrid fans might have been happy at that signing when it happened. A lot
I
of
mean, damn near
football
the
fans
whole
in the
world
world.
was just like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they're gonna
Yeah.
terrorize all of Europe." Yeah,
Yeah.
sure, buddy.
The whole world was
They're
basically
at
like,
risk
yeah,
of missing out on Champions League qualification. They're currently second in the league, which granted is being generous because Barca should be way more points ahead, but they sold the whole month of November. Atletico's 1 point behind them with a game in hand as well. So it's a lot of questions. So before we end the video, keep this in mind. Their next game is Girona away. Girona is never an easy game. And then their next Champions League game is against Atalanta, who has been extremely
but
scary
yeah,
offensively
Atalanta's
this
been,
season.
yeah, they've been brilliant.
So a lot of questions need to be raised if Madrid don't come out with anything more than a win. And there's a lot of people saying, will Ancelotti make it to Christmas? Um, well, I mean, if they do, I don't see who they bring in, say an interim coach.
Yeah, they
I
can't
know
really
that
bring in anyone major yet.
well, If Alonso comes next season, do you think that if Mbappe, well, Mbappe's still going to be here, they're not going to get rid of him after a season. If Alonso comes to the club, would he make the team better offensively in terms of setting up the team structure? I'm
I think
talking
setting
purely
up wise,
offensively.
yeah, I think offensively he would. Now that, of course, comes into question about what happens to the midfield because Alonso, for the most part, he's either done a back three where he plays a 3-4-2-1, or he does a back 4-4-2-3-1. So that would call into question what happens to that midfield in
The thing
particular
is that
because,
3-4-2-1 could work, but you need a player
yeah,
that's able to play from deep to make that happen.
exactly. And I think that's the thing. They don't have that Real Madrid. They need to get that in the summer. Like they Kroos retired. Now they no longer have that. Like Chouameni can't really play from deep. He's great defensively, but can't spray those balls over the top. And really with Valverde, he's a good midfielder, but he doesn't have that style as well. So there's that big question. If they do play a 4-2-3-1 or even a 3-4-2-1, I don't know if they have that profile to really,
Three
you
in the
know,
back might work for
help them.
them best because, like I said, lack of fullbacks. So they'll need that extra coverage. And they do have I mean, they do need to reinforce center backs, but I mean, yeah,
Yeah, they do.
that'd probably be the best bet
Absolutely.
for them. Anyways, that's our take for just the dead side of Real Madrid right now. Keep in mind, I'm not even going to slate them too much and say that they're shy and all that because this is Madrid at the end of the day, and they'll probably do some black magic Satan
It'll
stuff
come
to
back
come
to bite
back.
you if you say that.
Exactly. And we're only 4 points ahead of them in the league with one extra game. So I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut for the next foreseeable games and see how it pans out. And hopefully my club doesn't sell this December as they did last month. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll be back with more additional football content. Keep our TikTok. We are super active on there almost every single game day. Always check out Matt's rants on his team and the other teams that are he's focusing on. Check out mine. I put in two. It's always on the YouTube shorts as well, so feel free to interact with those as well. Like, comment, subscribe, and even share those videos over to your friends. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time once I'm finally free from the curse of final exams. And have a great day. Guess we believe